Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Chap Mei releases. This time we've got ourselves the second of the new trio of dinosaurs they've released in this size range. This is the Cryolophosaurus, and you can see it's pretty much exactly what you would expect when it comes to a Cryolophosaurus from Chap Mei. It's got a very cool, very highly detailed look, and again, a very exaggerated, sort of stylized look like you usually find for Chap Mei dinosaurs. You can also see we have the same style of packaging where we have like Play Zone and Raging Dinosaur and stuff. It doesn't actually feature the Dino Valley logo on these anymore, but I am pretty certain they are still Dino Valley releases because I'm pretty sure that's how I had seen them labeled online and stuff. But you can see again on the back, you've got some images basically showing off the three dinosaurs in this line, as well as the fact that they do have a light up feature, each and every one of them, and a sound feature. So let's pop this out of the box and check it out. So here is our Cryolophosaurus, and you can see again, almost looks like if you would take like a vintage style dinosaur and turn it into a Cryolophosaurus. And of course you have, you know, the opposing side has the screw holes and stuff that you usually find, just like the Concavinator did that we had already taken a look at. But overall, again, I just feel like it has almost like that vintage movie monster style to this one specifically. Like, I think that's actually kind of charming about the figure. I kind of like that because it has that, especially in the head sculpt, has almost like I'm not even really sure how to put it. It just gives me the feeling of like if Carnosaur featured a Cryolophosaurus, it would be something like this. It just has that sort of look to it. But the figure looks pretty fun, so let's jump to a closer look and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here in the head sculpt of our Cryolophosaurus, you can see we've got some very interesting color choices for this one. We have a grayish tone for the majority of the body, but you've got like a light gray running up and over the snout. You have a red that leads up there on the top of the head up into the crest and follows along the back of the neck. And you've also got some of that red kind of, you know, spotting here through the face as well. You can see the skin texture looks pretty interesting, a little muted here in the face, but very, very fine. However, as you lead up toward the nostrils, you can see a few clusters of larger scales there, even larger scales as you move back here. And as you lead down into the lower jaw actually has some really nice, quite vibrant scale detail down here. The mouth does have an articulated jaw, which was a little bit kind of hard to open right there. It was a little stiff, but you can see the teeth are all sculpted out. They're all painted with a light grayish tone. You can see the same thing for the teeth on the lower jaw. No tongue or anything. It looks like no real detail on the inside of the mouth at all, but the jaw closes that far and opens that wide. So it does actually open pretty wide, which is nice. However, as you lead up here into the top of the head, you can see kind of like a scoot-like appearance running up there through the snout up into the crest of our Cryolophosaurus. The Cryolophosaurus does have some nice looking scale detail and fine detail up in the crest right there. You can see the eyes are kind of like a reddish color and they have a nice shine to them, and that's because they are a glass eye, plastic eye kind of gimmick, so that it can of course have like a light up feature and stuff. As you lead down into the neck, you see a line of ridges following along the spinal column, picking up in the top of the head but decreasing as you lead down into the body. You can also see that reddish tone following along the back, very glossy look to that reddish tone. You kind of have a little bit of a satin shine to this light gray, but nowhere near what you have on that reddish tone, which really helps that area again to stand out. You can see how it's just kind of shining there in the light. But as you move down along the side of the neck, you can see kind of like some creasing and stuff leading down along the neck. Pretty nice looking scale detail. You've got a few more spots of that light gray down here on the side of the neck. You can see the throat sculpted out right there, and as you lead down into the underside of the Cryolophosaurus, we have like a scoot-like appearance running down through the chest and stomach region, and larger scales here along the side. But as you move up into the side of the dinosaur, it again gets a little bit muted, not super muted, but definitely a little bit. However, when you get to this button where you have that sort of like dino damage injury, you can see the scale detail really pops. But you'll also notice there's a lot of variation to the scales, as you can see larger scales, but then really big scales, again much finer, smaller scales. As you move down into the arms, you can see the muscle definition quite nicely. Again, really quite vibrant detail in this area. You lead down into the fingers, you've got a scoot-like appearance running down the fingers. No nail paint though, unfortunately, but of course you have an articulated arm, which goes forward and back, and you'll see the same thing on both sides. As you lead back up, you've got a little bit more of that light gray showing up here in patterning as it leads out here toward the tail, but disappears pretty much in the hip region. And you can see, again, a scoot-like, sort of almost like a slightly armored kind of look there to the back of the Cryolophosaurus. As you move down here into the leg, the detail absolutely jumps off of the sculpt. It is really nice looking. Lots of variation to the scales, larger scales, again, popping up here and there. Some scoots running down the front of the thigh down toward the knee. You can see the kneecap itself. Very nicely defined musculature in both the thigh and calf moving down, and then as you lead down into the foot, you've again got that classic Chap Mei look where the toes are kind of held together. You've got the scoots running down the toes. The nails even sport a little bit of detail to them. You have a dew claw here in the back, and again, articulated legs as well, of course, forward and back. Super, super smooth. You can get them up to pretty much loop all the way around, and you have the same thing for both legs. You do have an open area here on the inside of the legs, but just like the other one, you can kind of see a little bit of detailing held within those areas. But as you lead out here into the tail, you can again see some pretty nice looking scale detail as you lead out. You see that kind of scoot-like appearance following along the spinal column to the Cryolophosaurus, and as you lead out, you have a little bit of a curve to the tail. And of course, when it comes to the figure, you're going to notice things like the head's a bit too large and the tail's a bit too short, but the Chap Mei line has always had their dinosaurs styled in that way. That's just the way they work. They don't focus on scientific accuracy. They have their own style to their dinosaurs, which personally is something that I have always enjoyed, and I do still enjoy it on these figures. As you move to the other side, it looks pretty much the same. Again, it's not got like any kind of like a turn in the head or neck or anything. It's pretty straightforward as far as the positioning goes. The only big differences is the fact that you see screw holes on this side and the battery compartment, again, for the sounds and stuff. But like I said, with the Concavinator, it's a fairly thin dinosaur, so you don't have too many options as far as where you can put that stuff. So they chose a more dominant side, and then the side that has to, unfortunately, contain some of this stuff. But you do see, again, a lack of a button on this side because we don't have that action feature thing going on over here. And the one leg is kind of back a little bit further than what we see on the opposing side, but not too far. You also have the area here where we have almost like 3 slice marks on the side of the tail, which is actually where the sound would escape from, and then one more screw hole as you lead out here toward the tail, and a little seam right there as well where that little piece of the tail was connected. But again, when it comes to a Chap Mei style Concavinator, yep, that's pretty much exactly what I would expect from that type of figure, and I think it does look really quite fun. Now, as far as the action feature and the sound effects and everything go for our Cryolophosaurus, you just have to press this button here on the side. And that's pretty much exactly what I expected. Chap Mei has been using that very cool old school dinosaur roar for an extended period of time. I wouldn't mind seeing them incorporate some new roars, like per species, something just a little bit different. I don't know if they can do that in the future, but I am still very fond of that dinosaur roar because it is so old school. It's just so classic Chap Mei. But you could see, obviously, the eyes light up in red, and we've got ourselves a roar for the dinosaur. As far as the size goes, for a length, as I knock it over, for a length, boy, if I can get these feet in a good spot, then maybe it wouldn't fall. There we go. Oh, nope, still not in a good spot. There we go. Now, for a length from the tail to the snout, you are looking at just shy of 9.5 inches, or around 24 centimeters. And then for a height, we are just under 5 inches, or about 12.5 centimeters. But of course, that is dependent on the way you position the dinosaur, because you could stand it up much taller, and now it's way taller. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Chap Mei Cryolophosaurus. And you can see it's pretty much the exact size range that personally I expected it to be in, and what you would probably expect it to be in as well if you are familiar with the Chap Mei figures. But for another comparison, we've got a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to the Cryolophosaurus to further give you an idea of the size. And then one final comparison, we have the Chap Mei Cryolophosaurus next to the Chap Mei Concavinator, and as you can see, they are pretty much the exact same size. So this brand new Chap Mei Cryolophosaurus is another pretty fun figure from them. I will say I don't like it quite as much as I like the Concavinator, but I do still really quite like it. And this one just has such a fun charm to it, like I mentioned earlier, because it has kind of like an old school dinosaur, like almost movie monster looking feel to it, which I'm actually really quite fond of. And the fact that, like I said, it almost has like the type of look and feel like I would have expected to have seen if the Carnosaur films featured a Cryolophosaurus. I just kind of feel like it would look something like this, and that's definitely not a bad thing, especially when you're like me and you're so fond of the Carnosaur films. But as per usual, Chap Mei always has their own very stylized versions of dinosaurs, and considering the gimmick with Dino Valley and its, modern day and people encountering dinosaurs, it makes sense that dinosaurs would have their own very stylized look to them, because who knows what they would look like currently if they continued to evolve. Probably, very, very different, I would imagine. So Chap Mei has the opportunity to have whatever artistic liberties they want with their figures, and it makes sense. And you can see again when it comes to this one, they've done exactly that, again changing up the proportions a bit as far as what you would see on an actual Cryolophosaurus, but still following along with the same trend that you normally see for Chap Mei. And in typical Chap Mei fashion, the sculpt is really quite nicely and very highly detailed. You do have a few areas where the detail is a little bit muted, but I don't think that takes away from the figure, honestly, at all. I think it still looks really, really nice as far as the fine detail goes. The paint apps are nothing really super flashy. They're pretty basic, just a little bit of variation of color between different shades of grays and a little bit of red for flashiness up there in the head and in the crest. But I think it works nicely and could potentially be the real coloration of a dinosaur like this. So, I mean, that makes sense as well. Maybe not quite as glossy on the reds as we see here, but they did a great job of really helping that crest to shine and stand out, and I think that's exactly what they were going for. You also have some fun articulation, which works pretty decently, as well as an action feature, which is always pretty fun. So overall, again, it's a pretty cool figure. Definitely a fun addition to the Chap Mei line. So if you are interested in grabbing one of these, your best bet is, of course, to check any of the following stores, because they all pretty much sell the same Chap Mei type of product, so you never know where you're going to run into one of these. So you should probably check either Big Lots or Cracker Barrel or Family Dollar or Dollar General, and I sometimes find them in other stores even more so than that. But of course, those are like the primary stores that many areas do seem to have at least one of, hopefully. So check those stores. Maybe you can find this incredibly cool Cryolophosaurus, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.